down in County Clare to record the events, customs and traditions of the county directly from older people, and that will be available for future generations. Marion Malone has been meeting some of those involved.
Rural Ireland is full of stories of a way of life that is now gone. But a group called NationwideCuimhneamhanChláir is determined to tell the story of County Clare by preserving its oral history and folklore.
NationwideCuimhneamhanChláir, the memories of Clare, was very much inspired by the Senegalese proverb, when an old man dies, a library burns. And I suppose that was our initial inspiration. We've certainly begun to realise that that certainly is the case. And not just when an old man dies, but when an old woman dies or when an old person dies, certainly a library of knowledge is lost and something hugely significant is lost to our society.
How are you doing, Georgie? Good.
The group is made up of some 35 trained volunteers of all ages from across County Clare. Among them are teachers, archaeologists, historians and community activists.
All of our people are referred to as courtori, our visitors. The old Irish word for visit was court. And we said that was our starting point, that we resurrect that old Irish tradition of going on court. So we go, we establish contact with elderly people across the county, we go on court and we record them professionally.
I'm heading up to North Clare, to Kilfenora. I'm going on court with Teasy McCormack. Teasy's a wonderful lady in her mid to late 70s, full of stories and history and information. So I'm going up with her, she's going to share some of her memories with us. I'm really looking forward to it now. I'm good, thank you.
More than 60 older people have been recorded to date, several of whom were over 100 years old. 5 of them have since died. Teasy McCormack's home is some 200 years old and served as a safe house during the War of Independence.
Many people stayed here and they were fed here, and the volunteers on the run used to be fed here and they slept here, and Liam Millis stayed here and Ernie O'Malley stayed here. And, my mother-in-law was apologising for Ernie O'Malley, you know, she said he was peeling potatoes near the hob, and he said if we always have as good. All the neighbours, of course, used to come here and court at night time, you know, and they'd have sticks and they'd be smoking pipes, and but they used to all congregate here, all the old men, you know. So I mean, there were good times too. They weren't all bad.
The courtori then archive all the interviews digitally, and they are safely stored for future generations.
We then have a process which is very important, where we actually summarise the interviews, where we break them up according to the different themes that are discussed. And what that will mean, when that is broken down according to time, is that in 50 years' time, if somebody decides to study Medieval customs in County Clare, they can go to our archive of memories and they can find in which interview and at what time in the interview Medieval customs was discussed, if they were discussed. So that is a valuable part of the process.
Tell me, Mrs. Hoy, do you remember Eamon de Valera ever coming to Scariff? I do. And what was that like?
105-year-old Margaret Hoy died 6 weeks after her stories were recorded, and her family was delighted to receive its own personal copy of her memories.
Like a lot of families, we'd have photographs, you know, we might have the odd DVD, but I mean, this is a complete record of her life. Maybe not so much for, you know, for my father or for me or, you know, my generation, but for the next generation. They can play this and see and hear Granny in kind of real life, and they can get a sense of what her life was about, and, you know, the joy, the sorrow, the sadness, the happiness. It's fantastic to have it.
Right, you're all very welcome again to our monthly meeting. And
apart from educational projects, the group has other ambitious plans for the material gathered.
We've been fortunate enough to get funding now from the Clare Local Development Company, which will allow us to develop the nuts and bolts of the actual project. But ultimately, we want to see folklore and oral history, the memories of our elderly people, recorded and used to breathe new life into the traditions and the customs that we document. And we feel, as a group here in County Clare, that this is a project and this is a movement that should be spread across the entire country, because the memories of our elderly people in County Clare are important, and they're as important in Armagh and in Kerry and in Wexford and in Belfast.
For me, it's enjoyable to hear their stories and their memories, and we'll have all this, you know, in years to come, we can look back and hear their stories. That's just fantastic.
The older generation want to talk, and we should want to listen.
In a short period of time, in a very short period of time, there will be nobody left to tell us about Ireland before electrification. There'll be nobody left to tell us about the thrashing, about the thatching, about the old fair days, about the first plane that crossed the sky, about the first automobiles to arrive into a local parish. And we have to try and go and record that now, because if we don't do that, it will be lost. And the one reality that we all have to accept is that when that is lost, there is no plan on this earth that can bring it back.
Tales of times past recorded for future generations. Now, it could be the case that retirement or the simpler process